dozen countries and extending it to more in discussing the second edition, and many of the authors of those chapters are here at this meeting, so it might be interesting for putting these groups of people together. Thank you, Mary.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm going to give this talk on behalf of Esther and Milarosa, who couldn't be here today. Okay. Right, so the Ateneo de Manila High School is a Filipino, Catholic, and Jesuit college preparatory school for boys located in the Philippines. As one of the Philippines' premier Jesuit schools, the Ateneo High School has been including bioethics issues in its sophomore biology classes as part of its mission to develop holistic education in the Ignatian tradition. In terms of the Bioethics Institute-led Bioethics Education Project, AHS became a partner school in July of 2003. To appreciate the facility with which the Ateneo High School welcomed the Bioethics Project and the vigor of its faculty's participation, it is useful to understand the philosophy of Ignatian education with its motto of Lux in Domino, or Light in the Lord, which captures the spirit of a way of life which the school seeks to foster in its students to be able to be God's light in the world for social transformation. In the same vein, the biology faculty of the Ateneo High School, inspired and guided by the philosophy behind Jesuit education, viewed their participation in the Bioethics Education Project as a means to relate scientific knowledge with the ability to reason, address students' concerns about ethical and social impacts of biotechnology, present a balanced picture of risks and benefits of alternative technologies, develop more informed debate, and develop in students the ability to make their own stand in bioethics. In the first year of its participation, the biology faculty of the Science and Technology Department conducted 47 trial classes on 10 different chapters and developed a teacher training workshop for public school teachers. At the end of the first year, teachers and students found that the introduction of bioethics made biology classes more alive, personal, relevant, enlightening, and thought-provoking. The teachers were also grateful for the current and updated scientific information contained in the bioethics chapters. At this point, at the end of the first year, the recommendation was to mandate the teaching of bioethics as an integral and formal part of the biology curriculum of the high school. The recommendation from the first year of its participation in the project was fulfilled in the second year. Bioethics was integrated into the biology curriculum in keeping with the general provisions of the Constitution of the Republic of the Philippines and the high school's philosophy and objectives of providing a well-integrated program for student learning and development. The ease of incorporating bioethics into the biology curriculum was not surprising because of shared interest between the goals of the project and the goals of the school. As one high-level school official said, the relevance of bioethics education with the thrust of Ateneo's basic education in terms of the formation of attitudes, values, consciousness of ethics of things in relation to the realm of the mind and how it resonates well with Ateneo's mission of how to bring a sense of ethical responsibility to children, how to bring them to an ethical stand, the possibilities of which concern all of us in basic education. In the implementation of the actual classes, the teacher selected the chapters from the bioethics textbook produced by the project. They integrated these with regular topics in biology. For example, when discussing genetics, they used Chapter 4 on testing for cancer gene susceptibility, Chapter 5 on human gene therapy, and Chapter 10 on gene food. In connection with the incorporation of bioethics in the biology curriculum, Ateneo High School, on its part, is concerned with the following points. First, how to evaluate responses derived from students. Second, the future role of Ateneo High School in spreading bioethics at the basic education level to other Philippine schools, and the possibility of longitudinal studies tracing the ethical development of the students who were part of the project. From the project, AHS expects to be able to receive guidelines on how to implement bioethics education and to be able to get a copy of the initial findings so that it can reassess its programs in the light of these results. In line with its mission and vision, out of its own initiative and resources, in the second year of its participation, Ateneo High School conducted activities that were beyond its borders. So it formed teacher training seminars and workshops for teachers from Manila and the provinces. Promotion and development of networks were also accomplished via these workshops, as well as through presentation Ateneo's bioethics experience at the National Conference of the Biology Teachers Association of the Philippines. Teachers also developed or modified modules and activities and feedback forms to fit their specific needs. In addition, bioethics as a formal component of biology was introduced as a discourse within the Ateneo de Manila University system, which includes not only the high school, but teaching and research university and other units as well, and with other Jesuit institutions outside the Philippines. In terms of project implementation, what made the partnership between Ateneo High School and the Bioethics Education Project successful was because of their shared values of promoting bioethics education as a way to form well-balanced, rational, and ethical persons who can contribute to society. Moreover, Ateneo High School, firmly rooted in its identity as Filipino, Catholic, and Jesuit, is in a very strong position to be a contributing partner in the project. As one of the premier private high schools in the Philippines, it also has the capability in terms of academic flexibility, human and financial resources to be able to implement and to promote bioethics education in the light of its philosophy and goals. What were the lessons learned in the past 2 years of teaching bioethics in the Philippines? First, it is very important to formulate short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals, as well as clarify expectations and roles for partners in order to facilitate implementation of the project. For the future, it is hoped for that there will be involvement of key figures in Philippine education, formulation of a Philippine bioethics textbook for high school students, and to articulate bioethics in the Philippine setting beyond this project and the textbook which they are using. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes, please.
My name is Mr. Chan from Thailand. Can you share the experience of your conducting bioethics in high school? I have experience in conducting ethics class in a university and for students with multicultural. Normally we concentrate on how to reason, moral reasoning. But for example, in my country, modern education normally emphasize on the cultivations of the values that we think desirable for our society. In your context, how you balance these two concepts in your classes? Because it seems that the Catholic community has some values that they want to implement into the ethics classes. And especially in this issue, there are so many points that actually there are some different ideas even in communities of the scholars, even in communities of the Catholic scholars themselves.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Actually, in this case, it's a Jesuit school, and the biology teachers, they, although they are given a certain amount of academic freedom in the classroom, they cannot veer very far from what the ideals of the school are, which are Catholic. So in that sense, they have to reinterpret the chapters in the light of their identity. And I think that's a very strong way of dealing with it from their part. So they are always in a constant, I would say, modification of certain things. Yeah, because in the sense that they cannot go very far away from who they are.
From Hong Kong. I'm very interested to know that you have part of your biology class and you have the bioethics in the biology class. My question is the way of knowing or the way of attaining knowledge in biology and a way of getting into moral reasoning in bioethics seems to be quite different to me. And based on my experience, and I'm a nursing background and also study philosophy. So when I start my teaching, I've given a class on teaching pathophysiology. And then I'm given a class in teaching theories of knowledge and human nature. And then when I go to the two classes, I find that I have to shift my mind. Otherwise, I cannot actually go into the discipline and then help the student to understand the kind of knowledge. So my question actually is, why not take bioethics as a separate class and why integrate it into the biology class?
Well, basically when we approached them, they said we choose to integrate it into our biology classes, so it's their choice to integrate it into biology. But what they do is, for example, they first get into the technical scientific stuff, and then maybe, let's say in a 1 hour class period, they would spend about 45 minutes teaching the science of the topic, and then last 15 minutes will be used for some bioethical applications. And then also, like, they use it very much like when it comes to homework. So they have lots of essays, and basically the students can write their opinions at home and just give it up at the end of the day. Yes, what actually during the end of the first year, they were also thinking, let's expand to other areas, let's say religion, or what's the other one, social science. But as of now, that has not been implemented concretely. So in a way, it's very logistical. It was very easy to introduce it in the context of the biology curriculum.
Would like to compliment you regarding Professor's question. Just I want to tell one thing, that the Jesuits in the Catholic Church are much advanced. That's in the sense that they will accept bioethics as a separate curriculum in the whole college, because now they don't have any kind of inhibition, that is, there is no kind of, so as to say, now Jesuits have launched in the theology of liberation, So there is no problem involved whether to include bioethics as a component or like that. So it will be included as a separate discipline, and our professor is there. He can also give his comments.
In fact, I asked Dr. Sheriff
in a very highly competitive and crowded curriculum, particularly at the +2 levels, when the schools are very much interested in getting the results, how do you find a space for teaching bioethics?
Well, for one, okay, this connects with the issue of assessment and evaluation. The first question is, if you teach bioethics, are you supposed to give it like as a question in exams? And if you give it as a question in exams, then the entire paradigm becomes different, right? So the decision right now of the school is basically not to grade it, right? Because they don't want to say this is what the correct answer should be, or this is the incorrect answer. So in that sense, there's no pressure because it's not graded. But there is a tendency, though, to smile upon the, what do you call this, the train of thought which is in line with the school's philosophy, rather than those which are, you know, not really the same as what they think is ethical. But I don't know if you can actually totally ignore that factor.
I'm afraid we have 2 questions here, but we'll have to wait till next time. Put your hands up at the beginning, as I suggested. Thank you very much, Marianne. The next paper is moving to the internet. Okay, so I'd like to have Jukamon Chapraset from Thailand to talk about internet self-efficacy and student-centered learning in Thai secondary schools. So thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I have broadened the topic a little bit to computer self-efficacy and student-centered learning in Thai school. In fact, this is a research-based paper, and it isn't much about how we teach value in school, but how value is overlooked when we introduce technology into school. So the new educational bill in Thailand encourages student-centered learning and self-regulated learning, and as a result, computer has been viewed as a very promising tool for acquiring knowledge in the school environment. But we have some problems associated with the threat of computers, like inadequate use or inability to use computer to accomplish goals, and the widened knowledge gaps among students. We have heard about digital divide, which refers to unequal distribution of opportunities across society groups to reap the benefits of computerization. And we'll look at the socioeconomic factors such as income or gender as one of the major factors affecting the digital divide. But regardless of IT availability, like today's school provide facilities and computers for their students, but IT use may still be prohibited by psychological factors. And as some of our speakers said this morning, environment does affect life, and our mind also affects life. So we'll look at how introducing technology into school affects students psychologically, how introducing technology into school affects their perception of self-worth. I used a concept introduced by Bandura about self-efficacy. In fact, the word self-efficacy refers to self-perception of one's ability to perform a given behavior, and it influences the behavior individuals choose to engage in, how well they will perform those behaviors, how long they will persist in the face of obstacles, and how they cope and respond to adverse situations. So it is an important contributor to performance, accomplishments, whatever the underlying skills may be. Sources of self-efficacy are their past experience in using computer, any problems encountered during the use of computer. And by observing other people perform the task, by verbal support or maybe the anxiety or physiological and emotional arousal from using computer. And my research look at psychological variables that might be related to computer self-efficacy, the relationship between computer skill and computer self-efficacy, and the relationship between computer self-efficacy and other aspects of self-perception, such as self-esteem. I did a survey of around 500 students and 50 in-depth interview of secondary schools and university. I include both government and private schools, technical schools, as well as specialized schools such as performing arts school, and also state university and private universities. So the results are as follows. When we look at sources of self-efficacy as proposed by Bandura, we found that physiological and affective state are major determinants of self-efficacy, followed by observing others and verbal persuasion. But in Thai school context, observing other people doesn't have a very strong effect on the perception of ability to use computer. And some other psychological variables that I include in the study are locus of control, the extent to which the student perceive that their behavior was directed by their motivation or of self-control. And this have like weak to moderate effect. And some other variable that was found to be associated to anxiety have very weak relationship with self-efficacy as compared to variable proposed by Bandura. I include this one into the study myself. This is the need for cognition, or the extent to which the student find using their thinking to find solving problem using a lot of cognitive effort, challenging. This is one of the major factors related to self-efficacy. Owning computers or availability of computers at the school have relatively weak correlation with computer self-efficacy. And this is the relationship between computer skill, the operating system and the net skill have strong relationship with self-efficacy. And some other computer-related skill like typing in English, the ability to read and write English and math skill also have some relationship with self-efficacy. I think these are the variables that are normally overlooked in school context. And I found some evidence that the computer self-efficacy also have like a moderate relationship with general self-efficacy, how they evaluate their self-efficacy overall and their self-esteem. I did a similar study in a workplace last year, and I didn't find, such relationship in the previous study. Computer self-efficacy in the workplace didn't affect self-esteem in any way, but it did affect self-esteem of students in the school environment. So the conclusion and the implications with the widespread of computer in school, those administrators have to take care of not only providing the equipment to the student, but they have to take care, they have to find a way to facilitate, to ease this new computer user into using the equipment, like providing them with a proper training program and technical support. Because for those who are not very successful in using computer, they tend to value themselves lower than those who are successful in using computer. And in addition to providing computer lessons, schools should also facilitate the student to develop other computer-related skills. And the school have to be more sensitive to introducing technology into school, taking care of the psychological and moral aspect as well as the technological aspect. Thank you.
Thank you. So, thank you. I've seen 2 hands already. So, first, Jong-Ru, while you're going to microphone, let me make a comment. It's interesting already this afternoon we heard the internet mentioned several times. And the textbook project I have is producing materials online on free on the internet. So it's interesting to have a paper looking at the impact of the internet in general.
Okay, thank you very much for a very much thought-provoking presentation. It was very interesting. And my question is very simple. Could you specify the computer self-efficacy, the computer-related, skill to raise the computer self-efficacy in addition to English you mentioned, if my understanding is correct?
But I'm afraid that in this study, the computer-related skill was specified by me, so it's what I include only those variables that I thought might be related to self-efficacy. I think typing today might be related to self-efficacy. I'm also look at math skill. I compare students who major in math and science as opposed to those who major in are majoring in social science and humanity, and there are differences among them. Those who math and science major possess higher computer self-efficacy than the rest. So I really have to think more about those skills. But I also include some other variable in the past, like some psychological related variable, but not the skill per se. But I look at typing and math skill, and the need for cognition which involve the use of logic, and also the language skills.
Hi, Lindsay Connor. I'd just like to make a comment too around the use of the internet for investigating bioethical issues, because one of the things that becomes important is how do you assess the bias, or how do you critically evaluate the information that you're getting from the internet. So I don't know, would you like to comment on that? Because it applies to all internet use, but it particularly applies to bioethics, because how do we help students to understand that some information may be biased?
In fact, I am also doing research and work in media literacy as a whole, and that includes internet literacy as well. I think I try to develop the students' critical ability. Like when I teach a class, I always ask them questions, so my students don't like to talk in the class, because whoever started talking, I'll call them and ask questions. I think develop critical ability is very important to make whenever they make use, like whenever I ask them about the new story that appears in the newspaper, or even when I tell them something, I always tell them, you don't have to believe me, or you don't have to think the way, and this is just my opinion. And sometimes I can lie too. I always encourage them to be skeptical. So that's what I do.
Okay, thank you. Okay, briefly then, please, Dr. Sheriff, please.
Do you tell your students the scientific information that is found on the internet is sometimes misleading?
I didn't say that, but I encourage them to evaluate, all the information. They don't have to, I teach them the skills I teach them about how scientific knowledge will come about, how people, what people do in coming up with scientific knowledge, and they can use their knowledge about research methodology to evaluate information. They can question. I always tell them you don't have to believe anybody. You can use your knowledge of research methodology to judge and to evaluate incoming information. You don't have to believe them because they are foreigners or they are Thais or because they are university professor. I mean, they have to evaluate the information themselves. I teach them the tools too.
Thank you very much. Very good. Thank you. So I think we'll have one more paper before we have a little break for tea. So I'd like the next paper, I think Grace is presenting. It's from Liping Wang and teachers in the middle school attached to Beijing Normal University, also working on the Bioethics education project. This year's flowers are redder than last year.
Now it works now. And I'm here to present the vice headmaster of our school. And actually the name of our school is the high school affiliated to Beijing Normal University, one of the best well-known schools in China. And I'm going to give you a brief introduction of bioethics curriculum offered in our school in the past 2 years. As we all know, the existence of life is a precondition of all human activities, and the quality of life is the foundation of the progress of mankind. Life education, therefore, is an eternal educative theme. Bioethics invites the values and principles of ethics to test how human activities influence human life, animal life, plant life, and even ecology. Our high school is the first experimental school in China, in the mainland of China, which practices bioethics, which introduces bioethics, a brand new subject in the Chinese high school system. And my presentation today falls into 4 categories. The first part is the formation of our curriculum. The second part is the implementation of the curriculum. And number 3, achievements and reflections. And the last one is our suggestions. And let's move into the first one, which is the formation of the curriculum. And for this one, the first part I'm going to talk about is that offering this curriculum is very necessary. As we all know, science, life science develops rapidly and deeply in all over the world. Bioethics has been included into the scope of ethics education of citizenship in various countries. Nowadays, China's bioethics education is mainly confined to advanced medical schools. As to the science education to ordinary high schools, teachers focus on cultivating students' scientific stuff. As for the aspects of humanity, Chinese traditional culture and ethics concentrate more on individual responsibilities to society and country. We hope that the pursuit of Holy Spirit is above everything. All those have potential effects on students. Some of the students feel puzzled at the matters of life ethics. As China materializes the concept of scientific development, put people first, and builds harmonious socialist society, bioethics can improve juvenile awareness of life, which will help lay the foundation for ideal society where life is treasured and respected. And secondly, I want to say that our high school is, this course is applicable in high schools. The progress of society demands commensurate maturity of social ethics. In today's China, the rapid development of bioethics matches the demand on itself. As one of the most famous schools in the mainland of China, this school actually has 100-year history. Our high school has rich resources of education, and we are capable to practice this course in high schools. We're capable for the following 4 reasons. Number 1, we have advanced educative visions. We believe that high schools are responsible not only for students' higher education, but also responsible for their lifelong learning and for their lifelong development. Although bioethics is not a subject of the entrance examination to college in China, it fundamentally cares about juvenile growth and is significant for building ideal society. So our school attaches much significance to this curriculum. And the second, we're capable for the second reason, which is we have rich educative resources. For instance, in the Department of Biology, the number of postgraduates and teachers who have gone abroad for further study accounts for 1/2 of the whole staff. They have great potential to conduct teaching and research. The knowledge and the skills they master are supplementary to each other. Separately, they studied on zoology, organic embryology, ecological environment, education, etc. Besides, we have those teachers who specializes in combining class teaching and information technology. Some teachers are members of Animal Protection Association. In other words, teachers in the Department of Biology in our school are capable to offer this new curriculum. And number 3, I want to talk about emphasis on management. Headmaster of our school, Mr. Liu Hu, he looks into the subject and identifies bioethics as a featured subject of our school. The management gives full support to bioethics curriculum, both financially and materially. In order to promote the sustainable development of bioethics, we are also active in offering opportunities for external exchanges. Now, the second part of my presentation is about the implementation of the curriculum. And I want to talk about this part by part. The first part is about arrangement of the curriculum. Actually, bioethics is an optional course for senior 2 students aged at 17. It enriches students' knowledge of biology science. Biology is a compulsory course for senior students, and this bioethics is an optional course. By learning biology, students learn some basic knowledge, and then by studying bioethics, they acquire relevance. They can gain further understanding of the relationship between biological science and society, and thus the life education. Now, the second part is the time of lecture. It is every Wednesday from 3:25 to 4:45 every afternoon, and it lasts about 80 minutes. And the whole course lasts 1 semester. Now, number 3, the number of students. To facilitate interaction, we only allow 30 students for every class. And for the next semester, we might have a different group of students. And number 4, the textbook. In the first year, in the first trial, we used bioethics for informed citizens across culture, provided by Bioethics Institute. The teaching experience of the first year told us that some chapters of the original textbook were not suitable for our students due to the fact that different cultures, different nations have different economic and cultural backgrounds. Our students have difficulty in understanding some of the cases and some of the metaphors. As a result, in the second year, we used the English textbook as a framework and began to compile the textbook suitable for our Chinese students. And number 5, about the lecturers. Teachers of the Department of Biology are take the main responsibility, while teachers of politics and English, along with specialists from other institutions, take an active part in the program as well. Now next, number 6, the contents of lectures. Because there is no domestic precedent and relevant experience, teachers choose the subtopic freely on the basis of the familiarity of the students and their respective specialties. Every lecturer will be responsible for 2 or more topics in which they're interested. And later I will show you a chart which shows what are the topics we're introducing to our students. After the first round of experiments, we seriously listened to the feedback from the students. Some students pointed out that they didn't like the depressing topics, like palliative care. Some considered that such topics as testing for cancer gene susceptibility were not closely connected with their daily life. And some said the concept of ecotourism was not so familiar. On the other hand, they are interested in ethical problems in association with human cloning and embryonic stem cell research. Some students are interested in the recent events like SARS or bird flu. The question of drug abuse is also raised by some of our students. Based on the needs of the students, we adjusted our curriculum the next year. We selected those topics that were more interesting and linked more closely to reality. More teachers with their specialties were encouraged to join this project. Now, number 7, I'm going to talk about the forms of teaching. We adopt the following way, which is combining explanation and discussion. Teachers provide basic materials and explain the relevant knowledge concerning biology. After that, the students will be encouraged to discuss the issues of Chinese legislations and prospects in the fields of AIDS prevention, organ donation, human embryonic stem cell, and so on. Now, number 8, which is about the assignments for students and appraisal evaluation of their learning. Students are required to write 3 articles, 3 essays, either in English or in Chinese. Grades are based on their participation in class and the quality of their writing. After 1 year of teaching, we have realized that life education is a combination of science and sentiments. Apart from selecting the typical and the touching cases, we should pay attention to the knowledge of science, because science knowledge can change students' behavior and attitudes. That's why we learned this morning UNESCO became UNESCO in the end. And teachers should allow students to discuss and express their ideas freely and fully. We organize students to discuss the typical cases. In that process, students are able to think about the matter of ethics and make their own judgments. Bioethics curriculum does perfectly in encouraging the initiative of teachers and students. Teachers have displayed more pictures and visual materials. Some lectures have students play roles. We also organize our students to make surveys, such as public opinion on the human cloning. And we also organize students to visit exhibitions, such as anti-drug campaign. Now, the third part of this presentation is about the achievements and reflections. Feedbacks from the students show that they're not attractive to bioethics. They're very attractive to bioethics curriculum. They benefit a lot from instructive lectures and free air in the classes. Because quite a few teachers take turns to give lectures, students have the opportunity of learning various teaching styles in a short time. In addition to discussions with teachers and classmates, they also exchange ideas with their parents, which makes family education a part of school education. By studying bioethics, students not only get to know the most sophisticated science and technology, but also receive a profound life education. They begin to realize the significance of science, society, and life. They gradually understand how precious life is and what responsibilities they should take in society. Bioethics enables students to learn how to behave, how to understand, how to coexist, and how to survive, which is good for their lifelong development. By getting involved in this international project, every teacher in our high school benefits from it. First of all, they get first-hand materials. Second, the project heightened the prospect for their professional development. Our teachers have published many theses on bioethics, which has had some influence in China. Mr. Liu Hu, headmaster, he had his thesis published in the Fundamental Education References. This is actually an academic magazine of the Chinese Ministry of Education. The title of his article is Bioethics, a New Curriculum of Life Education. Bioethics curriculum provides a stage for teachers to collaborate and communicate with foreign participants. Teachers better understand their students. They have learned that not only are students willing to learn science, they're also eager to know more about society and express their own ideas about the reality. Finally, bioethics curriculum promotes our educative vision of STS. S means science, T means technology, and last S stands for society. Our teachers have begun to transmit the thinking of bioethics on purpose. Finally, our suggestions. The 21st century saw the rapid development of life science. New terms come up at an amazing speed. So we think bioethics needs to refresh itself in contents and reflects the features of the times. Second, because every country has its own conditions. As one gentleman put this morning, he said, East is East, West is West, and these two just cannot meet. And therefore, we suggest uniform textbooks will cause the difficulty in understanding, and with the basic principles observed, every country should develop its own subjects in accordance with their national conditions. Third, different institutions should strengthen their mutual exchanges and collaborations and assimilate each other's experience. The healthy development of bioethics cannot be separated from the joint efforts of different bodies. Finally, more people should be encouraged to learn bioethics. Pupils in elementary schools and college students are all targets of their education. In Furthermore, the success of Bioethics curriculum shows that it has a bright future. We believe that we can do better and plays a more important role in the development of scientific culture. And finally, I will show you two charts. The first one is about the curriculum, the topics for our Bioethics curriculum in the semester from 2003 to 2004, and the second is from 2004 and to 2005. We changed some of the topics. Okay. I think this one might be clearer. And this is the curriculum from 2003 to 2004. Actually, in the second trial, we left out topic number 5, number 9, number 11, number 13, and number 14. And this is the curriculum for the second trial. And in this trial, we add in some new topics. Okay, this is the first trial. Okay, I made a mistake. And the first trial, we left out number 5, number 9, number 11, 13, and 14. And now, in the second trial, we add in some others. Number 5, number 9, 11, okay, 6, 10, 11, and 12. And later, my colleagues are going to show you two of our courses practiced in our high school, which are drug abuse and organ donation, and they're coming later. Okay. So that's all for this, and we want to thank Dario for your textbooks. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to allow one question, since you haven't asked a question, Irene, and then we'll have a tea break and come back for more of the classes. So one question now, and then you've got a mic.
Well, I'll preface it with a comment that I'm from the West originally, and I'm here in the East, and I live in the South, so perhaps we can meet at some level. I hope we can. It's a very unfortunate thought, I think, in this day and age, that we can't meet. I'm interested because you had the first reference I've heard in all of the discourse so far on parents, and the role of parents in ethical education has not come up yet, and I wonder how the responses are with the parents, and what you say that they take it home and talk to their parents, whether parents actually bring things in and bring issues up, because I would think that this is very much at the heart of preparing the minds and the hearts of students to the debates that you're fostering in the classroom that really look excellent. Thank you.
Okay, no, thank you for your comments. And I also think that family education is a very important part of the lifelong development of teenagers.
Thank you. As I said, we're going to continue with two more presentations, but I'm going to give you we have 5 minutes. Please go and get your tea and coffee, have a rest room visit, and bring it back to this room, and let's continue. Now, before that, we have a question at lunchtime. It's maybe possible that the vegetarian food might be put onto a separate table. The kitchen manager said. But it depends how many people. Could you put your hand up if you would prefer the vegetarian food to be put on a different table? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Several people putting up double hands. Okay, thank you. We'll see what can be done. But there are labels. Okay.
teaching about to try your life, refuse drug. Distinguished guests, it's nice to meet you, and my name is Li Jianzhi, and I come from the high school affiliated to Beijing Normal University. Learning target. 1. Learn what is drug. 2. The harm of drugs. 3. Reasons of adolescent drug abuse. 4. Keep away from drugs. 5. Consider ethical issues involved in drugs. Teaching process. 1. Introduction of the subject. Most poisonous snake with most beautiful appearance. Most poisonous flower with most beautiful looking. The poppy, originally a beautiful plant, now a flower of evil, since people extracted white resin from its flower. In recent years, drug abuse is becoming a common problem in all countries around the world. Most worrisome is that teenagers are the main group taking drugs. We can have no time to help them improve drug awareness and keep away from it. 2. True color of drugs. Drugs, a kind of special medicines controlled and mandated by the state, are tended to make people addictive after abuse. Meanwhile, the characteristics of drugs are poisonous, addictive, and illegal. The common drugs are opium, heroin, methamphetamine, dancing outreach, morphine, marijuana. In this section, I prepared some questions for students to discuss. For example, is pesticide a kind of drug? Cigarettes and alcohol can make people addictive. Are they drugs? 3. Harm of drugs. When you appreciate being rich, poppy flowers, death is looking at you too. Harm of drugs can be summed up as self-destruction, family breaker, society destroyer. In this section, we could find a lot of cases, and the examples I gave were close to teenagers, as they are supposed to be my listeners. For example, I gave them such a case. Mr. Flower, in May 2000, Hutia, a beautiful British female student, died of heroin overdose. Her body was found on the day of her father's birthday, 3 days after her death. This is the gesture when she died, kneeling position. It seemed like she was questioning herself, apologizing to her parents, confessing to God, charging the drugs, and cautioning others. Many students have got to know some drug-related cases through newspaper, TV, and the internet, and they told some stories about the terrible experience of drug abuse. I first present the students following pictures and let them talk their feeling when teaching them drugs harm to families and society. Characters in the first picture. Once I lived in good house and wouldn't worry about food, and now I get into drug abuse. That sends me begging along the streets. And the second picture. Taking drugs, getting into debt, stealing, robbing, going into jail. In addition, I also provided some statistics to specify the harm of drugs. Drug Drug abuse is a complex social phenomenon, and many other problems occur because of drugs. I offered some cases for students to discuss. For example, intravenous drug users, high-risk group for HIV infection. 50% of HIV-infected people are victims of drug injection. Drug clubs are especially funded in other countries to provide clean syringes for needle users. Do you agree with this method? Our students senior years argued that before drug abusers get rid of drug addiction, offering clean injectors can prevent else spreading, and long senior law insisted that the method actually encouraged drug abuse and tries to legalize it, resulting in further spreading of drugs. 4. How far is drug from us? Is a cause and end result of drug education. National Drug Abuse Control Committee conducted a statistics for age structure of Chinese drug abusers. The result is as follows. Age structure of Chinese drug abusers. What conclusion can you draw from the figure above? I let students analyze some cases. For example,